Hello everyone, this is Pranav from Horizon, and we also have Satya, Gautam, who are the Horizon team members, and we have a special guest today who is Mr. Manu Rekhi. He's the managing director at Inventus Capital, which is a venture capitalist firm for early stage startups. Now, I would like Manu Rekhi to please introduce himself.
Hi,
Welcome, Mr. Manu.
thanks for having me over. My name is Manu, and I've been a partner with Inventus Capital for the last 11 years. Prior to that, I was running a startup, a gaming startup, and also running MySpace, which is a social networking site competing with Facebook. And before, so if I go back in history, I was ran product at Google for Gmail, Calendar, Orkut, which is another social networking site. Most of my experience has been in the consumer space, as you can tell, and yeah, so a combination of entrepreneurial plus, and then sort of led me into becoming an investor accidentally.
Mr. Manu, which is what is that one particular quality you look in startups or when you evaluate a lot of pitch decks which come to you. So what is that one thing you filter startups on, or is there one kind of metric you filter startups on?
Yeah, it's always hard to have one thing that filters it off. Just to give you a scale, last year we saw close to almost 2,000 companies, right, in inbound, and out of that we did 5 investments, right. So the funnel goes pretty deep into it, right. So I think, I can tell you what things will work rather than there's a lot of things
Okay.
I can easily tell which ones won't work, right. So, getting a recommendation that comes from somebody we know makes a big difference. So cold calls rarely work. Sometimes they do, but typically, as an entrepreneur, you need to have the jagad, right? So,
True.
entrepreneurs, like you have to prove everyone wrong, right? And so just because you're sitting in a tier two city in India, sort of say, well, I don't have access to capital, I don't have mentors, I don't have this, yeah, if you complain, it's hard. It's not easy, right? So somebody who
Mm,
is in San Jose, Silicon Valley, has access to more people. True, but it doesn't mean that you can't make it happen. So I think the one thing I like about entrepreneurs is rebelliousness, right? You need to
mm,
rebel. You can't just listen to everyone. You have to have your North Star. You have to sort of say, I believe in this enough that I'll make it happen. And, so, so you find ways to make it happen, right? You become innovative, so rebelliousness is a key trait. The other traits, is a curiosity, also intellectual honesty, right? You can fool other people sometimes, but you can't fool everyone all the time. And especially you cannot fool yourself, right?
true.
So,
True. Definitely.
so you have to have the intellectual honesty. You need to know, what you don't know. And you need to have people around you that know what you don't know so that you can build a better team, right? Startups are not built by one person or one entity. You have to be able to have the leadership quality.
Mm,
So you learn, you find mentors, it's the introspection, right? So when we ask questions, especially at the early stage when we invest in startups, right? There's no financial, history. There is
mm,
no, long-term engagement with customers. It's pretty new, right? Uh,
true.
so it all comes down to the founding team, right?
Got
Is this the team that can make it happen, right? Do they have the right ingredients? Even in 40-50% of marriages don't work out. People may stay in the marriage,
Yeah.
not happy. The kids know that. I mean, the kids know it way before the parents know that. Right now,
True.
divorce become more common, but it's the same thing. If the founders are like mom and dad, if they don't work together well, that's the number one reason for failure, because you don't have mutual respect is gone. You don't depend on each other. So so you need to choose. I cannot choose a founder for you, right? Or
Mm,
entrepreneur. You have to choose the founder. You have to do the diligence. You have to, it takes time, like, to figure these things out. But not just because they were your roommates in college and that makes them a good co-founder, right? It may or may not, but it's not the only criteria, right? So you have to really test, what happens when things go really bad. Are they running away, or are they helping? When you're feeling depressed because something didn't work out, are they also getting depressed, or they're actually
Mm.
helping you get out of it? Right? It's a relationship. You're going to spend more time with this person than your own significant other or parents, right? So you're
True.
better with them. So yeah, so we look at these personality traits, that are more important. You know, you have an insight that because of the insight and your capabilities, things become easier because the risk
Mm.
becomes lower, right? So somebody else may look at the same risk and sort of say, "Oh, that's impossible," right? But you have either a technical insight or a process insight or product insight, and sort of say, "Oh, I see things differently, and I have the capability to make that happen, or my team, or we can do it," right? So I mean, everybody thought, I mean, look at things like Uber, right?
True.
Why would anybody get into somebody's car, and some random stranger's car, and what did they murder me? What did they kill me? Like there's 100 reasons why everybody thought that was ridiculous, right? For so
True.
long, taxis around, but nobody thought that private citizens can actually
Mm.
make it happen, right? So, and then it's easy. Obviously, Ola just copied Uber, right? And so
Yeah,
that's
pretty much.
yeah, that's not the same thing. But the initial idea, how do you get that going? I mean, I remember Travis, who's the CEO,
Mm.
talking about this all the time. No investor wanted to invest in him. He had a really hard
Yeah.
time initially, right? So everybody's like, "Hold on, that's stupid. Like, why would that's risky?" There's like 10 different reasons, but he believed in his, you know, there's a need for this, but I know how to do this differently than anybody else can see it.
Mm.
And there's, people want to go from point A to point B. There's not enough
Yeah.
taxis to do that, right? In hindsight, people can have 10 different reasons to explain why this worked,
Mm.
but in the moment, right? How do you,
Yeah.
and then you have to have the perseverance, right? Because people, ideas come to lots of us, right? But
Definitely.
would you leave your job at Google or Facebook or Intel and sort of say, "I'm going to now go pursue my dreams," right? It's big enough and I'm going to pursue it. People
Mm.
convince themselves, or they talk to their friends from college or their mom and dad, and they convince them not to do it, right?
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it.
So you have to have that trigger. Like, I'm smart
Mm.
enough. I believe in myself. And if I don't do this, right? If I don't do this, I'm always going to regret it. So
Yeah, that
you
is
have,
also yeah. I mean there's this one thing which a lot of people calculate when they're starting up, which is, will I have maybe one extra, at least will I go break even if I start my startup or company? And then what is the risk involved? Maybe financial risk, mental health, societal pressure. The third thing is, if they're having a family, how will I feed my family for the next coming years, isn't it? So I mean, all of this together, actually, I mean, starting up is actually a very, very tough thing, isn't it, Manuji? I mean, it has a lot of difficulties than actually working for a 9 to 5 job.
that's right. And that's why, you need to have that. So, when people start saying, "I want to be a startup founder because it's a sexy thing to do," I'm like, no, this will kill you. You have to be comfortable with chaos, uncertainty, with the expectation that you could lose everything, and you do it in spite of that, right? So I
True,
tell
true.
people very honestly, I'm like, don't do this. And I told my brother he wanted to be doing this, and I looked at, like, you can't, And by the way, your significant other has to be supportive, right?
Hmm.
Like when I decided, hey, I want to quit my job at Google, 2 months after Lehman's Brothers
Hmm.
collapsed, and, this is 2008 when the entire economy was collapsing.
Okay.
I said, I want to quit my job and I want to go back being an entrepreneur because it's been almost 4 years at Google, it's getting too
Hmm.
big. And I'm getting bored of, at this large company. Yeah. My wife, I told my wife, and she said, "Okay, you should do it. Like, you'll be happy." And she was a medical resident. She's not making any money. She's working 80 hours a week.
Okay.
And I was surprised. I thought there'll be long discussions. She'd be like, "No, no, you can't do this. We need the money. We need to, all these things." And her first answer was like, "No, you're like, I've noticed that you're not that happy anymore the last few months, right? You should quit." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So the next day, I just decided to go and do it. So I tell her at dinner, and she's like, "Hold on, we just discussed this yesterday. What do you mean you already did it?" I'm like, and then she started laughing. She's like, "Okay, right." Now, just like your founder or co-founder, you have to find the right spouse as well, right? They
Hmm.
have to be
True.
supportive, right? And it can go both ways, right? Sometimes your spouse might be the entrepreneur, and you have to be supportive.
Yeah.
So, this is all about good communication, right? Now, I know one of my friends really wanted to do it, but his spouse is completely against it. It's like,
Okay.
and the spouse works at Google, so they have enough money to survive, but it's like, oh, this is stupid. You're taking unnecessary risk, and we can save all this money for retirement and do this or go to vacation.
True, true.
You have to remember, because as an entrepreneur, like when I was doing this, I didn't take a day off in 4 years,
Mm,
right?
pretty much.
I was
Yeah.
working Saturday, Sunday throughout. I did, and vacations were non-existent,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, being an entrepreneur is a hustle, isn't it? I mean, it's pure hustle. It's just day on day, self motivation and self encouragement. Like you will have to do, or else. I mean, it's either do or die situation. Like you just sink to the bottom of the ocean, or you just swim. That's it,
Yeah.
isn't
and
it?
and it's emotionally draining, but that's why
Mm,
it takes the effort to do it, right? Not everybody can
mm,
do it, right?
yeah.
So this is why choosing a co-founder is very important, right? So
Okay.
often, like my wife asks me, is like, what do you really do at work, right? All I hear you do is talk, right? You talk, you listen, you talk, you invest. It's like, but what do you really do at work, right? Right? And she's a doctor, so she like, I go and save lives. What do you do? Right? Actually, my daughter did that. She was at 5 years old. She
Okay.
tells the school, it's like, mommy saves lives and daddy does email. And I was like, and then I got depressed. I'm like, this is sad. I'm like, this is all, so I had to start explaining it to her. I'm like, this is what daddy does. And she's like, I don't, so I took her to work. So she came into my pitches. So she would sit there, entrepreneurs are pitching, and she would listen. At the end, she's like, oh, what do you do? Right. And I'm like, well, I listen. And then if I like the idea, I give them money. Right. And I help them. And it's like, okay. So you build stuff. I'm like, no, I don't build anymore. I used to, but now I just give them money. And she's like, oh, okay. So they build it. I'm like, yes. Yeah, you got it finally. So and then 10 minutes later, she's like, but so you really don't do anything. So my 5-year-old I had the hardest interview with my 5-year-old, right? And so I had to, so I got depressed for a few days. I'm like, this is sad, like instead of dismissing her, sort of saying, oh, she doesn't understand, you know, I sort of find ways to sort of say, how do I explain this,
Mm,
right? So I started asking my co-founder, my
mm,
CEO, what do I do for you guys, right? Uh,
mm,
and the feedback actually came back was very strange and interesting. Actually, it's like you're like our psychiatrist,
mm,
right? Like when things are really bad or something happens, I can come to you, and I can come to you more than I can come to other board members, um,
mm,
because you've gone through this journey before. You understand what we're going through, and then you can tell us if things are going really well. You tell us, tame down.
true.
Don't get too excited too soon, because things. And then when things are really bad and like, oh, I lost a big customer, and we don't
Mm,
have payroll. I'm going to lose my company in 3 months, and they're really depressed. And then you help them bring them back up again, right? And so
okay.
and the thing is, like, they're like, I can't go tell my mom about this, because she'll tell me, I told you not to quit your job. I can't talk to my spouse. I can't talk to my employees because they expect me to be
True.
strong. So I have no
Yeah.
more. And I can't go talk to my priest at my mandir or whatever else I need to go, because they don't understand what I do, right? So who do I
True.
talk to, right? And so it's that piece, it's that release, and sort of like, well,
Mm,
it takes a lot to build a company, right?
true.
And it's not easy, and you have to have strong, you know
Got
internal
it.
strength, but you need to have
True.
people
True.
around you that can help you as well.
True, true. So yeah, I mean, coming back to the having a co-founder or not. So I mean, right now in India, at least we see that maybe around 50% or 40% of the companies are single founder, or one founder based. But again, they turn out to be really good. I mean, they turn out to be successful as well. So I mean, is it always good to have a co-founder, or if there's one person who has the zeal and who has the right what do you call direction to follow, is it more than enough for a, I mean, from an investor's perspective, to to invest in a company? And also as an entrepreneur, is one single founder good enough to push a company to its maximum what do you call stage or level?
Yeah, it's like, could you raise a really good kid with a single parent? Yes, yes, you can. Is it
Yeah, but it's
easier?
again tough.
Is it, yeah, it's tougher. Is it easier with two parents? Yeah, yes, it is. Is it easier with three parents? No, it's harder, right? So it's actually the same thing, right? You don't want your mother-in-law or somebody else to also co-parent. You don't want three people, with the kid, right, with the startup.
Mm,
So research over many, many hundreds of startups, thousands of startups, has shown that success rate over long term,
mm,
you know, you know, two is better than one, is better than three. It's the optimal. It's just like a bell curve, right? So
okay.
it doesn't mean that one doesn't work and three doesn't work, right?
Mm,
It just means that the probability of success is higher with two. right?
Got it.
Because especially the early stage, there's a lot to do, right?
Mm,
And then what happens? You typically have you know co-founders are the ones that work the best. You have somebody who's the inside person and somebody who's the outside person, right? So the outside person, the ones talking to customers and VCs and anything outbound, right? Marketing messages and details. The inbound person is more the technical, sort of running the ships on time, making sure everything's taking the product, the engineering,
mm,
operations. Yeah. So you can focus on 100%. If you have a single founder, you have to do all of those things,
true.
right?
Pretty
So
much.
what you're sort of saying is like, hey, I'm sharing the load, right? And by the way, the other person then becomes part of your the support system that you need
Yeah.
as well, right? Because they're focused on building the IP and long term stuff. And so if you have short term things that happen wrong with a
Mm,
customer, something else, they can help you. Sort of say, no, look, we're building a feature. It'll be here in 6 months. It'll be easier next time, right? They're helping you,
yeah.
and the other person sort of when something doesn't work out, they can help each other out, right? So
Got it.
it doesn't mean that a single founder cannot do everything, and they can hire a really good person as an employee.
Mm,
And they often call the initial employees as early employee founders, right? So
yeah.
that's right.
Okay. So my next question is, I mean, right now in India, at least, what we see is that a lot of students start up. So as we were discussing again, if you could just reiterate or just explain again, what is the changes from student being an entrepreneur and a normal employee from a what do you call, from a FANG company or any of the MNCs starting up? What is that difference you see, or the one? I mean, it might not be one. Like, what is few differences you see between a student starting up and an employee? I mean, a proper MNC guy starting up.
Yeah. So being an entrepreneur, I mean, we talk about this quite a bit. Is
Hmm.
it's sort of evenly distributed in the population,
Hmm.
right? Your dad could be whatever, it could be an army officer, you could be a good entrepreneur, bad entrepreneur, you could be, from an MC, so think of this as evenly distributed across the board, right? It's your risk taking ability, right? Um, so the hardest thing to do is to make that leap. I'm ready to give up my comfortable thing and do
Hmm.
it, right? And whether you're doing it at 22 years old or you're doing it
Hmm.
45 years old, I don't think it matters as much,
Okay.
right? Personally, I think it's the conviction. Like once you've decided, I want to take the risk and do it anyways. Now, you could have gone to a BITS, Pilani, IIT, like a really good college or whatever, VIT, and sort
Hmm.
of say, I'm not going to go get a job at an MNC. I'm going to do a startup. Yeah, your mom and dad are not going to be very happy, right? You
True.
spend a lot of time getting into college, the money that got spent, all the, the training, everything else, and sort of say, hold on, you're gonna go, you could get so much more money as a salary. You're gonna work for the next 2 3 years, and you don't even know
Hmm.
it's gonna be successful, right? Why would you
True.
take that risk? So there's a lot of pressure for you not to do it, right? Now,
Yeah.
if you got comfortable at an MNC, you have a nice cushy job, you have a nice car, you have everything else. Now you want to leave that and go to a startup again? Yes, it's a risk. It's a different risk, right?
Yeah.
But it's still the risk that I am giving up something. And so it's not when you do it, it's if you do it. And if
Okay.
you do it, most people don't do it, right?
Hmm. True.
And if you do it, you already increase your chances dramatically just by doing it. If you never tried, the startup will never be successful because you never did it. It's a
Yeah.
100% guarantee it will not work, right? But if you tried, there'll be now there's a 10% chance it will win, right? But if you look at overall 100% of people, right? If only 10% of people even decide to try, and only out of those 10%, even 10% are successful, that means only 1% succeed, right?
Hmm.
In a population. But just by trying, you've increased your success by 10x,
True.
right? And so that's the hard, so doing it, taking that risk initially is a piece. Now, if you fail, 9 out of 10 will fail even after you decide to do it. What do you do after that? Right? Do you give up and just go back to an MNC and sort of say, I'm done? Startups were, so you can have that attitude and sort
Hmm.
of say, that was just a terrible experience. I'm never going again. And so that's fine. That's a, yeah, you were probably the wrong person to do it in the first place. Now you find out more about yourself, right?
True.
But if you sort of failed and you sort of said, I'm going to go back, do it again, right? That person is a really good bet. A
Yeah.
failure, I actually, we look at failure and sort of say, oh, you failed once and you're doing it again. You've already paid the tuition before. You've already learned things you don't have to learn again. Maybe you'll make more mistakes, but you won't make the same mistakes. And you wanted to do it again. That means, um, people who, so we look at another personality trait, right? Do you blame other people or other things or other, when things go wrong? Or do you sort of
Got it.
say, what could I have done better? Could I have not seen this? Why was I not smart enough to see this coming? Or could I not listen to my customers better? Or should I, if you blame yourself for things, in some sense, not blaming, but but introspect, that's a good entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
Because it's easy to blame everybody else, very
Pretty
easy.
much, yes.
I was like, in India, it's like it's Rambros. Like, why does this happen? Why is the virus happening? Like, well, it's up to God, right? No, you could have worn a mask and you could have done something smarter, but no, it's somebody else's fault. I will not take personal responsibility, right? So I think that it goes with the personal character,
Mm,
right? I can control. What I can control, I should try to figure it out. Things that are out of, I can't control what my competition is doing, so I don't. You can't worry too much about that, right? But what you could do on your own, to be able to sort of say, well, why is my competition outmaneuver me? Why was I not
mm,
smart enough? What could I have seen? What should I do now going forward, right? So it's always comes back to you as the founder, right? But if you start blaming other people, or my kids were messing this up, or my mom, or my employees, I hired the wrong employee. Well, fine, you hired the person, so it's your fault, right? So, all right, I should have fired this person early enough because they were
yeah.
bad. So, it all comes down
Yeah.
to you as a founder, and it's not an easy thing to do, but you have to have that mentality. So, we try to look for those personality traits. Not always easy during an interview, right? But those are the things that we look for.
Okay. Yeah. So, coming back to once, I mean, taking a very tangent and going back to this, what's wrong with the valuation thing happening with a lot of companies right now? Why is it that companies are valuated in a very wrong way, or is it I mean, are they overvalued or are they undervalued? How does this happen? And then, after this happens, why do we say most of the companies fail after they are, I mean, valued at maybe more than $10 billion or more than $20 billion? Why does this happen?
Yeah, we don't play those late stages, but I can give you why they happen, but whether a company should have already gone public at a billion or 2 billion, why they're still a private company, I don't know, right? Now, private companies are valued by one person, right? Or the venture firm, or in
Hmm.
this case, late stage growth firms, right? It's not done, by the market, right? The public markets are when you have millions of people or hundreds of thousands, and analysts and everybody else looking at the company, you really get to evaluate the company, and it's a free marketplace, right? So people, if you don't believe in it, so you sell the shares. If you believe in it, you buy the shares, right? And that's how the market sort of figures out what the right value for the company is. In the private markets, it doesn't, that doesn't work as much, right? So so euphoria, there's only a few buyers and some sellers, and so it's not an efficient market, right? That's why these things happen, and so they go up in cycles, right? Euphoria goes in there's a hype cycle. People don't want to miss out, and so, like, oh, if I don't get into this, I'll miss out the next unicorn. So you keep people selling in. So it's just human psychology that comes into play, right? Now, as an early investor, right, I'm like, okay, fine. That's, if I have late stage money, that's not very smart. It's good for us, right? Because our companies get valued higher. But you don't want to get them so valued higher there's undue pressure on these companies,
Hmm.
right? So if you have lots of high valuation, but the company doesn't make a profit, then you're completely at the mercy of the next investor, because what if the market goes down and there's no longer money coming in, right? Flipkart got lucky; they got acquired by Walmart, but the company was losing money, right? That's not. I mean, at some stage, your business model has to work, right?
True.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was at Google. Google, in the entirety, only raised $80 million of money before they went public, right? And out of the $80 million, only about less than half of it was ever used, right? That's an efficient company. One of our companies that just went public, they were unit economics profitable with less than $50 million raised. An e-commerce company, right? Now, if you look at, Flipkart is an e-commerce company, and I have a company in the U.S. with the U.S. cost centers, is able to get the unit economics profitability, and now actually EBITDA profitability as well, right? Why can't an Indian company do it, right? So I think these are bad habits get formed. You tried, the KPIs that was like, oh, grow at all scale, GMV, right? I wanted to
Mm.
maximize GMV. Okay, well, that's easy to do. I buy something for 100 rupees and sell it for 90 rupees, right? Of course, customers will buy from me, right? And if I don't do it, Amazon, somebody else does it, right? And
Yeah,
so losing money is easy to do. Anybody can do it,
always.
right? But how do you build a scalable? I mean, Snapdeal founders realized that this business will never make
Yeah,
money. Decided to be very open about it,
sell
right?
it off. Yeah.
I mean, that's just say Flipkart was very close to going under. I mean, Walmart, so now you have a bigger, dumber idiot like Walmart coming in and saying, I'll buy it, right? Because they were like, oh, I don't want to lose to Amazon again in one other place, right? And so they decided to buy it. It was not a smart idea to do, but but this
Mm.
is because these decisions are not made by public markets; they're made by one company or one board member or one investor, right? And they can decide what their personal feelings are, right?
True, true, definitely. Okay, so Mr. Manuji, I mean, a couple of small questions, which is, can you suggest any 5 books which every entrepreneur, every student should, start reading or should read before they start up? Any such books you have in mind?
uh, well, it's been so, there's a book called Good to Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think I remember that from a while back. Uh, from a scale perspective, there's a book called Blitzscaling by
Okay.
Reid Hoffman. So like once you get to $1 million, 2 million, like how do you scale beyond that? And
Mm.
that's a pretty good book to read. Um, Things around
Lean startup management.
startup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like those books. Where um, you know, there's a couple more. I can't think of the top of my head right now, but
Okay.
I can share by email later on.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, before we end this talk, I mean, what is that one advice you would give to a student who's starting up? A student who's starting up,
Yeah,
who's just fresh out of college, just finished his bachelor's. I mean, he's like, okay, let me conquer the world now. What is your suggestion to him?
yeah. The suggestion, is like, surround yourself with people, that are smarter than you, because they will help you scale and think through and tell you where you might be wrong, right? Get a strong mentor as well. Not somebody with just money, but somebody who's done this before, so can actually share the experiences with you because you want to learn from other people, other smart people, rather than make new mistakes. Don't make and failure is a learning opportunity, right?
True.
You don't wallow in it. Well, you sort of introspect, figure out, and then move forward. So there's not just one thing, but when you lack the experience, the on the positive side, when you don't have the experience, you also don't know what's not possible. So everything seems
Yes.
possible, right? And I think that's the advantage you have when you're younger, that your mind doesn't, because of all the experiences you've had, you sort of say, oh, that's not possible, this is not, people with lots of expertise in the category, right? It's like, why didn't the car companies figure out how to do electric car and make it work, right? They've been building cars for 100 years. Like, why they had all the technology, they have the factories, they have everything, they have money, they have everything. Why couldn't they figure out? Why does a technology startup from California, with no experience in building cars, actually build Tesla, right?
True.
Uh, it's because nobody told Elon Musk that it wasn't possible. He didn't think, he didn't realize how hard it was, and so you do it,
Mm.
right? Now obviously he had experience in the past as well, or Mark Zuckerberg, right? I mean, like, doing Facebook right after college, right?
Mm. True.
You don't have the experience, but it's you understood consumers really well. You understood what he wanted, and you have a strong north star, and sort of say, how do I build? And to his credit, he brought in some really smart people to help him around him that he didn't know what to do, right?
True.
But
Okay, so yeah, I have one last question. This will be the final one for sure, which is, when I mean, a lot of students in India, especially, give this excuse, which is, I didn't have exposure. That is the reason I couldn't grow. But again, although I mean, this is one big contrast which they say. I mean, one big contrast they talk about is living in a rural area and in an urban area. although both the kids living in the urban and in the rural area have the same internet connection, same internet bandwidth, same access to newspaper, same access to all kind of media, all kind of content. But again, that there's just one excuse which they give is exposure is not available in rural area, although you have in the internet, because the internet is right now is one platform where everything is available. A person can learn from simple dictionary to dark web. He can learn everything. But again, according to you, is it a right excuse to give, or a right excuse to say I didn't have exposure in my life because I was restricted to the kind of area I was living in?
Sure. You can give all the excuses you want. So what? Who cares? Yeah, so the thing is like like I said in the initial piece, like as it's up to you to figure out, if you have that piece, go move to a place that has more exposure, right? Take the risk. I mean, and even in the US, and like the chances of success go up at least by 2x if you come to Silicon Valley. It's more expensive in Silicon Valley, it's more things.
Hmm.
But if you're in Texas or some, I don't know, some other random place, coming to California or the Bay Area actually improves your chance of success, even in the US, right? So you could move from New York City to San Francisco and you increase your success.
True.
There's always that other piece that people will complain about. But if you look at the founder of Paytm, could barely speak English,
True.
right?
Definitely. Yeah.
I've met Vijay Shekhar before, right? I mean, and he had another company before, but through just hard grit and sort of say, hey, I didn't have the right schooling background. I didn't go to the right school. I didn't do this. But he had grit. So the number one thing, if you
Yeah.
have grit, you will make things happen. So, or you can complain, but it's then entrepreneurship wasn't for you in the first place if you like to complain, right?
Okay. So I guess that sums up our session for the day. Thanks a lot, Mr. Manuji, for coming here and then sparing your time for this conference. Thanks a lot.